call the meeting to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, all members are present. Approval of the agenda. We have the agenda in front of you. Is there any changes, council? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Motion.
Motion by Heidi.
Second.
Second by Dave. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. Approval of the minutes, October 18th, 2017, regular meeting. Is there any changes, corrections?
I have one change on number 7 in action, or action items, letter I, the call for the vote. The abstention was myself as opposed to Councilman Thomas.
Okay, we got that correction then? Okay. Any other corrections, clarification? Do we have a motion to approve the October 18th, 2017 regular minute?
Motion to approve
A motion by Dave, that includes the change.
with the change, yes.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Diane. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'll abstain.
You're abstaining. Okay. 4 in favor, none against, 1 abstention. This now brings us to our public open forum. This is a moment for the public to speak on any agenda item or not an agenda item. We've got a public hearing coming up later. This is for anything you would like to speak to the council about that is not on the agenda tonight. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to the council? Is there anyone here that would like to speak to the council? Is there anyone here that would like to speak to the council? Seeing no one, our public open forum is now closed. We'll then move on to reports and presentations. A, quarterly ambulance report. Kathy?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm here for the third quarter report, including the months of July, August, and September for 2017. For July, we had 60 total incidents, of which 41 were billed out. 12 of those 60 were basic life support transfers, 7 were advanced life support transfers, and there were 19 no loads or canceled calls or special details. And that compares to, in 2016, we actually had 83 total runs for the same time period, so we're down for July slightly from last year. But from 2015, we had 64, and then 10 years ago, we had 45 calls in the same time period, so well up from 10 years ago. August, we had 74 total incidents, 49 of which were billed. 12 of those were basic life support transfers, 10 were advanced life support transfers, and 25 of those were special details, no loads, and canceled calls. And in August, last year, we were only at 71, so we're just up slightly from last year, 73 the year before, and 38 from 10 years ago. So up significantly again in the past 10 years. September, we had 54 total incidents, 43 of which were billed out, 17 basic life support transfers, 6 advanced life support transfers, and 11 no loads, canceled calls, or special details. And that's up from last year where we had 41 in the same time period, and down from 2015, which was 70. I think I don't know about that, never mind. But we were down from 2 years ago, but still up from 10 years ago where we had 37. So for the third quarter, we had a total of 188 incidents, as opposed to last year where we had 195 in the same time period and 120 10 years ago in the third quarter. So in July, we billed out $47,386, August $54,520, and September $50,273. We continue our local Central Care Sauk Center is our main receiving facility, and St. Cloud Hospital. We go anywhere from Fargo, North Dakota, and Grand Forks, North Dakota, to Mayo Clinic in the cities. We're all over the place on our transports. So, and crashes is one of our main call loads, and lift assists and falls. Special details, we did the 5K run standby. We had 3 parades. Fair booth, we do a day out at the fair booth where we start an incident and do standby at the fair and provide first aid. So we had 5 of those. 3 demolition derbies, a free-to-ride 'em escort, night to night, 2 football standbys, and then we had a drill with the Black Oak Wind Turbine Farm for one of our training days. So it's kind of an exciting field trip for us to take out there and see the wind turbines. Did a mutual aid for Melrose 4 times in the third quarter, 3 of which went to the Melrose Hospital, 1 went to St. Cloud Hospital, and we used our Lucas devices 2 times in the third quarter. Any questions for me?
Questions? Comments?
Great.
Good job.
Thank you.
5B, EDA report. Vicki?
Okay, the EDA met today. It was their regular meeting of the month, which is always the same day as the council meeting. They did receive a request, and they are working with a developer on conducting a market study for a new business that is proposed to go into town. And so the EDA will be working with them on that. They are recommending the pay-as-you-go payments. They have 2 of them left that we have to pay. That's pay-as-you-go, which are TIF payments, and those will be on your next council agenda. They are recommending decertification of TIF District 1-4. That's an action item later. I can get into more some detail at that time. They are recommending entering into an agreement on marketing the city-owned properties, and so that'll come back before the council. I'll get in touch with the gentleman we've been working with, and then he'll come back to a council meeting or be presenting a proposal. And at that time, you'll probably go into closed session to discuss pricing. So that'll be looking at the next council meeting. And then also the chamber at the meeting had announced they'll be getting a new website, so it'll be more user-friendly, they believe. So just few items for the EDA. They do have an action item later on the agenda. Does anybody have any questions?
Questions? Okay, thank you. This now brings us to our public hearing for the night. We'll recess the regular council meeting, and we will start the public hearing. We have a public hearing before us this evening regarding the 2018 Capital Improvement Plan North Hospital Area Project. It is our intention that everyone has the opportunity to be heard. If you wish to speak, please sign in on the sign-up sheet at the back of the room. The procedure is as follows. Presentation by staff, followed by questions of staff. Then we will have public input. Raise your hand. When recognized by the mayor, approach the podium and state your name and address for the record. State your comments and position. No one will be allowed to speak a second time until everyone has had a chance to be heard. First, we will hear questions for clarification. Then, secondly, public in favor of the proposal. Third, public speaking against the proposal. After everyone who wishes to speak has had the opportunity to be heard, the hearing will be closed. After closure of the public hearing, the council will deliberate and take action as appropriate. Members of the audience do not participate in the council's discussion unless a majority of the council concedes to hear additional information or questions. The hearing is now in session.
Okay, at the September 20th regular council meeting, the council called for a public hearing to be held this evening at 6:30 p.m. to receive public input on the reconstruction project 2018-01. This includes water, sewer, street, storm sewer improvements. We had some alley. It basically is the whole area of Main Street North up and Country Club Road, Lakeshore Drive, 5th Street North, 4th Street North, Elm Street North, and Oak Street North. This is the area of the city that the public utilities were installed in 1948. So notices were sent to all property owners abutting and benefiting from the improvement. We did include a proposed special assessment in the notice, because in the past, when we've sent out the notice on hearing, if they don't know what it potentially could cost them, it generated a lot of phone calls, so we went ahead and included those potential assessments in this notice. Our city engineer, Keith Yap, is going to conduct a presentation providing further detail on the project itself. Then the council will take action following that to determine if we want to proceed. This is just one of the steps in the process. This would be ordering the improvement. What that would do is direct the city engineer to take the next step to go into design of the project. Sometime late winter, maybe January, February, he would come back to us with a final design for approval. We'll be working with him throughout that process to come up with the design. The final design will come back for approval. If the city council approves the design, then we go out for bid. And then the bids come back, and there's another vote. So there's several votes the council has to take to implement this project. This is kind of like one of the first steps in that process. So I'm going to turn it over to Keith Yap. He has a PowerPoint presentation. You guys have seen some of this in the feasibility study. This is new information to the audience. And then following his presentation, you'll have the opportunity for questions as well as the public. So if you have anything else for me, otherwise I'll turn it over to Keith. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. This is the public hearing for the north area capital improvements for 2018 that are being proposed. Tonight I'll be providing a brief presentation that will introduce the project to the public as to what areas we're specifically looking at, what options are being considered for that area, a little bit about how that project might come together if it was to move forward, and we'll also then talk about the overall costs for the project. At that time then, we'll entertain any questions that the council might have, and I'll happily entertain all the questions that the public may have for me as we go forward. So with that, it's always a challenge to figure out where to stand here to stay out of the way of the camera, but I'll try to go over here. This is a 2018 capital improvements hearing. The project that we were looking at, the area, is located up here. I guess I'll call that the north central portion of the city, adjacent to Sauk Lake, kind of bound by Main Street on the east side of the project, 4th Street South on the south end of it. I wanted to kind of give you a little bit of a picture. This is something actually the council hasn't seen yet. This is an existing infrastructure condition index that we've recently been putting together. Essentially what you're looking at here is a weighted condition index that looks at the sanitary sewer, the water main, the street infrastructure across the whole city and says, what shape is this ultimately in? The important thing to look at is the ranking as it relates to the color codes you see from red to yellow to green to light blue to dark blue are varying conditions, with the red being in the worst shape and the dark blue being the best shape in that order as to where we're at. And the project, the area we're considering is right in through here, and you'll notice that it does make sense from the standpoint of that's what it looks like we need to go. It has some of the oldest infrastructure, has some of the worst streets in the city. As an overall, it's in some of the worst shape that we have within the city. There's a few other areas, and actually some of them down here that we have also talked about, which might be a little bit further into the future. But this is something that you as council haven't been able to see. It's brand new. So I wanted to show that so that the public also had an idea of why this area is being considered. As an example, I kind of zoomed in so you can see the areas that we're considering essentially are right in through here. Once again, you can see that this is that red in those yellow areas. Main Street, however, is shown a little bit better. I will note that the street condition of that probably isn't as good as what was done by staff as to what it is, so I don't quite believe what's on there, but that's what it currently is. We're still air checking and going through these things at this point. For this public hearing, the area that's highlighted is the specific areas that are being looked at as part of this project. We have an area through, basically bound by Country Club Road, just south of the golf course, all the way down to 4th Street North, and from Main Street all the way over then to Lakeshore Drive, Main Street all the way up to Lakeshore Drive on the north end. Our existing infrastructure condition, this is kind of why we're looking at this area. The water main is original. It's put in, it's 60 to 70 years old. There's an extensive 4-inch sizing in that area that lacks fire flow capacity. It hinders our distribution capabilities within the larger region. There's been many water main breaks over the years in that particular area. Sanitary sewer is original, once again, is over 70 years old at this point. The typical life expectancy of utilities of that age, we're there. We essentially are there where these utilities are expected to be replaced with those number of years old. The storm sewer is severely lacking in capacity and coverage. Those of you who might live up there know that there's actually very little storm sewer, very few catch basins that you see in that area. It just lacks that. And that's pretty typical for older areas. That's what we see in many communities. They just weren't thinking about that back in those days. As it says, it's non-existent in many large areas. This contributes to the flooding issues that we have down on Main Street and Lake Street, Main Avenue, I should say, in Lake Street, where we have a lot of flooding problems. And a lot of it is because none of it's being picked up from this particular area, and it all drains down and it just collects there, and there isn't enough capacity to get that stormwater out of there. From the street perspective, a lot of it's really just aging. Essentially, the bituminous is losing its flexibility. It's getting old and brittle. It's cracking. The foundation is really in pretty good shape. There's no substantial rutting that's occurring up there. That tells us that the soils below are in good shape. It's just old and needs to be replaced, essentially. Project alternatives. This is kind of what we call our base project here, which is really bound by Country Club on the north, 4th Street North here, Main Street, and Lake Shore over here. This was the base project that we looked at. There was a couple alternatives that were looked at. The one that's moved forward to the public hearing is what we call Alternative 1, which is the extension and reconstruction of Main Street in from a rural section to an urban roadway, curb and gutter, those kinds of things, extension of utilities up that area. That which is in the red was looked at as part of the feasibility, but is not part of the project. This is the whole area that was looked at as we went through this project. This is from a storm sewer perspective. This was over 250 acres were analyzed in this area to try and figure out how we can best deal with the stormwater in this area. We've got, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of flooding problems that have occurred down through here. And at the time, we opened it up and looked at many different alternatives as to how we can best deal with the stormwater in this area. This thing shows an example of the models that we've done. All these things you see are computer models where we have catchment areas and ponds and all those things. And one of my staff in the back did a lot of this work and spent many days working on this project. We came down to ultimately one preferred option after many discussions with council, and that essentially is to work with the stormwater system and move it towards the lake. The trunk storm drainage is generally routed to the lake, to Sauk Lake with this. It's mostly kept on the west side of Main Street and doesn't really cross, if you will, down to Highway 71 or further to the south, which is where it goes now. So it's picked up and routed into the lake. We are using infiltration basins that are proposed along Main Street North. As well as there's a lot at 4th Street North and Oak Street that would also be used as an infiltration basin. Once again, this is to allow some of that water to infiltrate into the nice sandy soils that we have up there, lessens the amount of water that we're discharging into the lake. It's also a water quality benefit as well. We're proposing 2 new water treatment devices. Those are essentially on Lakeshore Drive. One of them's at about Country Club Road, and the other one's a little bit further south of Country Club Road. And then we'd be utilizing the existing treatment device. There's one on the end of 4th Street North, right by the lake, and that one will be reused as part of this project as well. The storm sewer would be moved up to a 10-year recurrence interval design, which is consistent with everything we've done currently. I would say current system up there probably is at best maybe a 2-year or less design that's in that area, so it's substantially lacking from current design standards. Storm sewer improvements, I'm going to go through them first. Essentially, we have the water from the north side. There's an infiltration basin, as I mentioned up here on Main Street to the north. That water in this north end would be routed down into that storm structure I mentioned and into the lake. The other storm structure would be in through here, and it basically takes sort of this area in here, and that discharges it into the lake. The rest of it is collected sort of from this area, is collected, and it's brought down into this infiltration basin. This is the one I mentioned at 4th and Oak. It comes into the basin, then back out of the basin, down to the existing storm sewer structure that's down here, and then discharges into the lake. So basically, everything is kept within that area west of Main Street and discharges into the lake from there, and catches all of the storm sewer. So right now, everything just basically drains downhill and ultimately ends up down here in the low spot on Main. This would pick up that water and route it someplace else before it has a chance to get to that low spot and cause those flooding problems. We anticipate with this project alone approximately a 50% reduction in flooding that we have currently at that Main and Lake area, Lake Drive area. This won't take care of it entirely with this project. It'll substantially reduce it. We have to wait until we actually do the Main Street project with MnDOT down the line before we can fully take care of that issue. But it'll substantially make it better just with this alone. This gives you a little bit of idea, a little bit of a three-dimensional look at what that infiltration basin would look like through there. Hopefully it gives you a little sense. Those side slopes coming in are 5-to-1 side slopes. Just for comparison, like on I-94, the 4 slopes off of the highway, those are 4-to-1. So those are actually steeper than these ones would be here. These would be a little bit more gradual. So it gives a little sense of what would fit in there. It would be a dry pond. That means the water goes in, it infiltrates into the ground, and it stays just a grassy area. The street and sanitary sewer improvements essentially are replacing pretty much what's there as it relates to where they're currently at. Sanitary sewer generally flows from the north to the south. There is one improvement where there'll be a deeper sanitary sewer that runs up Main Street so that areas to the north here can connect into that at such time as the development occurs through there. All that 4-inch water main that I mentioned that generally is in this area would be replaced with 8-inch water main, provides that fire flow capacity and distribution capacity for the overall region through up here. Let's see, this kind of just shows the north end, kind of shows once again the utilities going to the north, the extensions. The water main is actually a trunk 12-inch water main that connects the existing stub that was just put with Kate's addition, connects on and runs it down to the south end of the project. Eventually with the Main Street Highway 71 project, that would be extended to the south and connected to make a loop, trunk loop that we are looking for in the future as well. These are what the roads would look like. These are typical sections. The first one up here is, the top one is actually Main Street north of Country Club. That would be a 32-foot wide section. So it's a little bit narrower than typical. Let's see, oh, am I doing that backwards? Yeah, actually I am, sorry. The one on the top is all of the rest of the streets except for Main Street. So this is our typical 36-foot wide street. We have sidewalks on either side. Where there are existing sidewalks, where there's not existing sidewalks, there wouldn't be those. So it'd be replacing those that are currently there. So it's our typical 2-inch non-wearing course, 1.5-inch wearing course bituminous roadway. The southerly one is Main Street north of Country Club, and that's the one that's a little bit narrower. That's proposed to be a 32-foot wide roadway through there. Same bituminous section. It's proposed to have a bike/walking trail on the east side of the roadway. That'd be a 10-foot walking trail through there, and that would be all the way from Lake Shore down to 5th Street is where that would extend. Goals realized with this project. One, with the trunk water main, a trunk loop is connected from the north end. We increase that capacity in the fire flows, as I mentioned. The replacement of that old and aging infrastructure. Sanitary sewer, we're replacing of that aging infrastructure. We get that additional depth for sewer for that development north of Country Club Road. Storm sewer, we enhance the overall storm drainage system, meaning we have more collection points. As a 10-year capacity system, which is substantially more than what's there now. And we allow that reduction of flooding down at Main Street and Lake Street as well. For the streets, we're replacing the aging roadway. The life expectancy also is to be increased with additional storm sewer. Just picking it up, getting off of running on the asphalt actually saves the life and allows that extended life of that roadway. Let's see, I think the cost. Before I get to that next one, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the project and what we'd foresee for the schedule for it. This is really early, but we haven't gotten into detailed design, but it would be anticipated that likely this would be a 2-year phased project. It's a fairly large size. We really just can't take up too much in one period. One reason is that we want to make sure, first of all, that buses can, for the school season, we want to make sure buses can get through there. Certainly in this case, we have the hospital, so we have to make sure that we have access for the hospital. So that kind of allows us to phase things so we can only tear up so much at a time, so we can allow for ambulances and other folks to be able to get to the hospital as needed. So likely we would then see this as probably a 2-year phased project. Those details will be worked out, but that's what I would foresee at this point in time. As part of the street improvements, one of the things we've looked at also is improving the alleys. Now, the alleys are only the existing alleys, so there are no plans to add new alleys. It's only the existing alleys. Currently, those are gravel alleys. They would just be essentially shaped up and paved. So that would be the extent of the alley improvements. And once again, those are something the council will look at is to, if the public really wants to do those, I think that's kind of a separate option for the council to consider whether alleys. But I just want to make clear that it's only existing alleys that we are talking about with those. Okay, we'll get to the costs. And first I'm going to show you with the alleys. These are with the alleys here. And this means that it's a little bit of a larger project, a little more cost. The total project cost is a little over $4.7 million to do all the work identified. The total costs, about 35.6% of that is proposed to be from assessments. 29.1% would be from city costs, and 35.2% would be from PUC costs. That which be assessed, I just gave, everyone's got their individual that was sent out to them, but on an average, and this is with an alley, if you happen to have an alley, that would be about $10,278 would be the anticipated cost for the average residential lot that's within that area. And if we do not have the alleys, if that's not done, or if you perhaps have one of the lots that does not have an alley to it, then it would be more like this. And this is a cost without the alleys. The overall cost of the project goes down to about $4.65 million. The percentages splits 35.4, 28.8, and 35.8 for the assessed city and PUC costs. And the cost for the average residential lot is $9,500, and that's without the alleys. Commercial lots are through there, which includes the hospital, are assessed for all of their sides of the street, which is different than a residential. A residential corner lot has a credit for the side yard. Anything basically up to 150 feet, anything over 150 feet, they pay for that, but they get 150-foot side yard credit for those corners. Commercial lots, which there are several of them up there, do not receive that credit. So I just want to be clear about those. And I think that's about all that I want to go through on our formal presentation. And I will turn it back to the mayor to address any questions that the council may have first.
Council, questions for staff?
Keith, this was just the base, those projections?
That's the base and Alt 1. That's
And
base,
Alt
Alt
1.
1. That's correct. For the total project cost, the cost for the individual, like the single-family units, they don't change a real lot whether you have the base alternate one in it or not in it. It doesn't really change those costs very much at all. It's pretty minor. But this is, as directed, is the base plus alternate one.
Any other questions?
I have
Go
a
ahead.
question out of curiosity.
Yep,
You said a 10-foot walking trail?
yep.
Why? That's kind of confusing to me, a 10-foot walking trail up there. Well, it's pretty wide. It's
Yeah.
not going anywhere. It's not, you know, it's not like there's a park at the end of it or something. It's,
It ends at Fifth Street too. I was kind of curious as to that.
Is there currently sidewalk or something on that side?
It would be where you'd have to cross and get to the sidewalk that's on the other side. I mean, and those, once again, are kind of details that we can get into. If the council ultimately wishes not to go that route, that can be eliminated from the project, but that's what was asked to be included as part of the overall cost. And whatever side of the street is on, we thought the east side would be the better side to be on based upon, you know, who's,
yeah, it's a separate issue.
Yeah.
I guess I'm curious why we have even a trail out there. Again,
yeah.
what's
And
the
the 10-foot
destination?
wide, to answer the 10-foot, it's a little bit ringing, but it's, that's a standard width now. They used to be 8-foot wide, but the MnDOT standards have pushed them out to 10-foot wide
Yeah.
trails,
I
so
won't
that's
argue
kind of
about
why.
the size of a
Yeah.
walking trail. I'm just curious
Right.
why we have a walking
Yeah.
trail out there.
And that's obviously your entire call, so it's currently in there, the costs are currently in there. If you choose not to do that, that's entirely fine, that's your direction.
I can understand a sidewalk, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, I can see a
But
sidewalk, but.
basically, because with the new apartment house going up at Fairway Pines and no connection to the neighborhood, I can see a sidewalk, but a trail is
Yeah, that's-
overkill and a lot of wasted money as far as I'm concerned, but, you
So
know,
is
that's
the
one of
trail
the
based
things,
on
when we get
maintenance?
into design, we can decide that,
Yeah.
but as of right now,
Yep.
I'm not.
Yeah.
too in
Staff
favor of it.
indicated that there's a lot of walking that goes around up there, and most people now are walking on the road because there isn't any other place to be once you get north of Country Club, so, but, you know, whether it's something different, that certainly could be entertained.
Is that 10 feet from the curb maybe, from the
The-
street side?
The width, you mean, or what do you?
Well, from the street to,
From the back of the curb to the,
yeah.
is that what you're
From
talking?
the back of the curb.
Let's see, it's 30.
So it's probably a 5-foot
Yeah,
sidewalk?
it's a little bit, yeah. No, the walkway itself is currently proposed to be 10, and it's a foot off of the right-of-way. So, yeah.
Wow.
A foot, inside the right of way.
Inside,
still a
yeah,
foot.
we always
But pretty
put-
much fills the whole right of way to the street then, I imagine. It's-
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. It takes quite a bit of it. And if you say, let's do a sidewalk instead, obviously, then you gain that extra 5 feet of
Right.
boulevard, if you will.
All right.
Okay. Alleys, we mentioned that, you know, that's one of the other design things
Yep.
that we've been kind of split on whether or not that could happen or not. Personal opinion is basically, it's gonna be, if an alley gets tarred, it's gonna be, everybody's gonna be in agreement, or they're not gonna be, and it's not gonna happen. That's, to me, that's,
I'm not real aware of what the alleys are like up there. Are they potholed and, I mean,
Gravelled.
tough shade?
I don't know if Keith.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of go through cycles, different times a year, like typical gravel, they're worse in the spring and those kinds of things, but, you know, I think from what I've gone through a couple times, and they weren't that bad that I've noticed through there. Just to clarify, and for the public's knowledge, you know, there is sanitary sewer that goes through, it'd be the one on the backside of Lakeshore Drive, so to the east of that one. That one, we would be going through and digging things up, so it would be at least replaced in a gravel condition, if nothing else, if we don't move forward with paved alleys. But that one will be getting all tore up with underground as well, just because the sanitary sewer goes through there.
Are they graded? Do they ever get
Matt, do we grade all?
Matt, is there a lot of maintenance on them, or?
I mean, just periodic maintenance
Okay.
throughout the summer, spring, fall.
Okay.
Periodic is just for those on TV, he said periodic.
And like I said, I think that's gonna be one of the design issues that we're gonna look at, and depending, but just so the public knows, that's not set in concrete as far as it going to happen, because I know some areas up there, the residents are on one side of an alley, don't have any garages or anything that alley would even use, where people on the other side, yeah. So to benefit one side of a block and not the other, kinda defeats the purpose of putting tar there too, so.
Right, well, and then if you pave an area, people will drive on it. And,
True.
And maybe you don't wanna do that in this instance. I don't
Right.
know.
So when we get to that point, we can look, but just kind of laying that out ahead of time, that will be a design thing. So, any other questions for staff? Hearing none, we will, thanks Keith.
Yep. I will.
We will go to, public input. Is there anyone here that would like to have any clarification on what the project is about? Is there anyone here that would like to have clarification? Come up to the mic and state your name and address, please. If you've got questions as far as,
Just a clarification. Dave Marthaler, 538 Elm Street North. When you assess the prices per lot, how did that come about? Per resident, per household, per street length, per road length? Where'd you do that?
based on frontage?
Frontage.
Yeah, so if you
So the
got-
golf course is getting paid, taking the brunt of this? I
he's
take
gonna-
it?
It's gonna be a. fair
Should be
share.
or is?
He is.
And the new apartment complex
Yeah.
is.
Yep, based on your frontage. So if you got a 50.
Is there any road sewer up there now, to our apartment complex?
Yes, yes.
Is there any sewer, water available to the golf course lots
There.
right now? The new
Sewer
lots that
only
are on
to
the golf course.
clubhouse right now, right?
Yes, there currently is sewer and water available to the golf course as a whole. However, it's very limited as it relates to, because it's very shallow for the sanitary sewer. There's very little ability to serve much of that area for sanitary sewer. Water could be extended because we don't have to deal with depth with that, but there is definitely a issue, not only just for the golf course, but other areas of developing on either side of Maine. We just don't have the depth to be able to service them currently.
Thank you. And is this the time for comments or just questions or clarifications?
Well, let's see if anyone else needs any clarification. Thank you. Is there anyone else here that needs clarification? Come to the mic and. State your name and address.
I'm Chuck Melkert, and 529 North Main. And I just have a question. One, I agree with the road and the curb and gutter have to be done. Across the street from me, there's no houses or anything yet. Are you still thinking of curb and gutter, the east side of Main Street there, down to 71? There's nothing right now where I'm at. Our side is, the west side is.
Currently, the plan would be that it would be curb and guttered through there all the way down.
To 71?
Yeah, all the way down, and at some point in time, if there's development occurs, they'd have to cut out some driveway approaches, those kinds of things. We have, for services for there, we actually have one larger service that then could be split off, because that area could potentially be commercial, it could have a row of homes along it, so we don't really know. So we're providing for the ability to kind of do either options with that, so that's what's currently proposed.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Is there anyone else here that would like to have clarification?
My name is Brian Belfine. I live at 510 North Oak Street. And this is just because I'm kind of new at getting these things here. So when you're taking a look at an assessment, it says how, obviously that goes into your assessments used, but how over, what kind of a time period is that spread across? Is it 10 or 15 years? Okay.
So the answer for those on the TV as well would be 10 to 15 years, that would be decided. Interest rate is typically 4.5%.
Okay. Really, that's all I had this time.
It can be also paid in one lump sum if you want to, otherwise, yeah, it's spread over 10 to 15 years.
But this is not just, I don't need any clarification on the alley. It's not the voting.
No.
Okay.
No. Okay, is anyone else that needs any clarification? Anyone else want any clarification? Anyone else wants any clarification? Okay, then we will move on to public and speaking in favor of the proposal. Is there anyone here that would like to speak in favor of the proposal? Is there anyone here that would like to speak in favor of the proposal? Okay, seeing no one, we will then go to, is there anyone here that would like to speak against the proposal?
This is Brian Belfi again. I live at 510 North Oak Street. I want to be clear is that I'm not against the street, the sewer, and all the pieces there. But I think in your discussions right there, you brought up about the back alley. Quite frankly, I see no value in any improvements in the back alley, especially in our back. I can only speak for our back alley, and I think for some of the people that are in there, I don't know if I speak for all of them, but I know I speak for some, that there is just, it's a nice alley. And I certainly don't want any more traffic going through there. I know there's already some people that have little signs out there that saying, kids to slow down and so forth. I'm sure if you did put tar in there, I think you would have more traffic going through there, and we certainly don't want that. And I think that part of it is also is that in the almost 30 years I've been there, we've gone from being a very old community to actually reverting back to a younger community again. And we're finding more and more kids that are going to be out in these areas and streets, and we certainly don't want to, not that the back alley is a safe area, but I think it'd be a more dangerous area if we actually improve put the tar back there, so that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak against the proposal? Is there anyone else that would like to speak against the proposal?
I didn't want you to read the third one, so. Had to come up. Basically, I don't think it's needed, period. The only reason it came up is the golf course, the new development, and he didn't want to pay for it. As far as I'm concerned, he was passing it on to the buck to the people that live up there, and there's young couples up there, There's widows up there. They got $13,000, They just don't. To charge them 4% over 15 years is just not right. Just because somebody wants to put some sewer, somebody wants whatever toy they got going on up there. He can push his weight around all he wants. I don't like it. That's stated.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak against the proposal? Is there anyone else that, go right ahead. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Marthaler, for bringing that up.
I am very curious, what is the benefit to the development on the golf course? I've got 4 elementary students. The letter arrived, my assessment's going to be $15,500. I don't want to finance that over 15 years. I understand that the infrastructure is 70 years old, but am I paying for that development? For those future lots, how much am I going to be paying for someone else to be making a pile of money? And I think that's on everyone's mind. It's really difficult to bring it up. I don't know the man. I don't know the plans. All I know is that it's $15,500. And no, stay out of the alley. I'm on 530 Oak Street. There's nothing wrong with the alley just as it is. I have enough problems with the alley without it being paved and a bunch of traffic running through there, which is what I believe would happen. I have 2 mature maple trees in the boulevard. I suppose you're just going to chop them down, and it's just very difficult to imagine my front yard without my 2 mature maple trees, and now I'm owing $15,500 for the next 15 years, or 10.
I'm sorry, I missed your name.
Erin Anderson,
Okay.
and I
Thank
live
you.
at 530 Oak Street North.
Okay, thank you. I know Vicky's got. Yeah,
Question
please.
about I just want to address the question about, is there a cost essentially for the potential development in the golf course or any area up there that is being essentially picked up by any of the residents or the commercial properties? And the answer is no. They really kind of just so happen to be next to each other, but the costs are not intertwined at all. The golf course, as an example, would be paying for their share of the street, their share of the sewer and water, just like anybody else would. There isn't any larger sizing that's being shared by the existing residents in the area. Nothing like that is occurring. So they happen to be next to each other, but there isn't any commingling of those costs at all so just to allay anyone's fears with that. And I think there was one other question. As it relates to trees in the boulevard, generally we're not doing that much in the boulevard. We're pretty much working from curb to curb, a little bit behind the curb just to get the new curb in. The existing street grades we expect to be very close to where they are now, might be slightly different. But areas such as if there's nice mature trees, we certainly won't be going in there and looking to get rid of trees, certainly not willy-nilly by any means, and we'd work with the residents to try and, if there are any that would come up in detailed design, to see if there's ways to avoid having to lose them. But at this time, I'm not aware that we would be doing anything of that nature. It is early, but I'm not aware that I wouldn't anticipate that as we get into that detailed design at all.
Right. We got one letter. One letter that might solve a few questions, too.
Okay, this letter is to the City of Sauk Center. It's an objection to 2018 proposed improvement projects, and I will read it on behalf of the sender. Dear Mayor and Clerk, our firm acts as general counsel for Center Graphics, Inc., the owner of property at 606 Lakeshore Drive, Country Club Road. This is the golf course property I'm referring to. This letter is the formal objection of Center Graphics to the proposed 2018 improvement project. Center Graphics, Inc. further objects to any assessments related to the said improvements based upon lack of special benefit to its property and lack of uniformity in allocating such costs based upon the class of the property involved. The Center Graphics property currently has sufficient water and sewer services for purposes of its operation. The operation of the property as a golf course is similar to an agricultural use of the property in that large areas are open space. The proposed improvements are not necessary and will not add any value to the Center Graphics property. As the city is well aware, Center Graphics has examined the feasibility of potential development and has determined that any further development of the property is not feasible. The market is not present to justify any further development of the land. Center Graphic believes it's important for the city to understand that moving forward, assuming that Center Graphics will be accepting of special assessments would be a mistake. If the project moves forward and the assessments are levied against the property, Center Graphics will have no choice but to appeal those assessments to district court. And this was submitted by Attorney Igor Lenzen from Brinke Noonan.
Mayor, I just wanted to have one comment, just so that you're clear on the assessments as they were calculated for that particular property. Street assessments on a lineal foot basis through there, as you would be aware. Storm sewer, because it's a large area, just to be clear, that storm sewer is on a square foot basis for everybody. For them, it's only the first 150 feet of the property all the way around. So it's not the entire property, because the rest of that property, if it develops, will have to deal with its own internal stormwater issues. So I just wanted you to be clear of how the numbers were arrived at. They also have currently 13 services proposed based upon what they originally proposed they might be doing along Main Street. Those could be removed. If they don't want them, we wouldn't put them in, or something of that nature. Or maybe we'd put in one larger service, such as I mentioned on the south side of Maine, for the east side of Maine. So something of that nature could be done instead. So that's design issues, but just so that you're clear on that particular parcel.
Okay, is there anyone else that would speak against the proposal? Is there anyone else that would like to speak against the proposal? Calling a third time, is there anyone else that would like to speak against the proposal? Is there anyone on the council that have questions or comments?
I've just got one comment, and probably, Paul, you can answer this. What's the infrastructure? Is there any projected future repair costs? I know it's age. Does that make a difference whether this project goes forward or? Sorry to put you on the spot, but
That's
I
okay.
saw you sitting there pretty comfortably. So.
Yes. Paul Hession, Superintendent of Public Utilities. The costs are really kind of unknown if it doesn't get replaced. It's as we have failures. We do have to spend extra time and money jetting and rotting the old sewers, and then for all the water main breaks we've had. But we don't know when we're going to have the next break, so it's kind of hard
you
to
had,
project.
What, 2 up there this past year, 2 water breaks?
I think it was. And 5 or 6 of them since Glenn Bauer started here. Is that 8 years or so? Mm-hmm. So I just, for us, whenever the city rehabs a street, we have to analyze the condition of the water and sewer pipes underneath. And when they're 70 years old, we need to replace them as they redo the street. And if we don't, they rebuild a new street on top of it, and then we'll be tearing up the new street every time we have a break.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul. Basically, this whole process starts is when we do a street assessment all over the city and we look at the condition of the roads. And when we see, and we've been getting a lot of pushback on a lot of roads that are starting to fall apart. And in the meantime, when we're doing this, we also go to the public utilities and ask them, okay, if we decide to do a mill and overlay or a patch job on this and make this good again, what's gonna happen underneath? Should it be replaced or shouldn't it? Can you live another 20 years with what you've got? Because once we put that road on, we don't want to have to be cutting chunks out of it to fix somebody's service line or a main break. And this is kind of where the ball starts now. This is only the first venue or item that we get through this whole process. We got to go through design, and then if we go to the next step, it'd be letting bids. And at that point in time, if it came back way more than what we're projecting, at any point in time, we can say no. The council can decide not to do this project. Right now, the Public Utilities is telling us that the water and sewer mains are so old with the numerous water main breaks that they've had, along with no capability of knowing what the sanitary sewer line is going to do. Do we fix the roads and take that chance it's gonna last 20 years, or we put the road in and then a sanitary sewer main collapses without knowing it, and 15 of you end up with sewage in your basement because we decided not to go with it. So there's a lot of options here that we have to go and weigh along with public input and cost. I've had a lot of people talk to me and say, why doesn't the city pay for it? Well, who's the city? It's everybody that lives inside the city limits. You're the city. It's either we see some point of value in what, with the assessments, or yeah, we could probably eventually eliminate assessments, but then the taxes are gonna go up one way or the other, or the cost of the water mains, or water service and sewer service. So this isn't an easy type of thing to go through, where we're getting pressure to have things nice and keep the city looking good. How do we do it the cheapest way and not affect people any more than we have to? Just any other comments from the council?
I was just saying, just to clarify, the utility and the street department, city went through the whole city, and they looked at areas where the roads were bad, areas where the utilities were bad, kind of ranked everything, and it came up with two areas, that being this north end and the Second Street south that was was also flagged in the map. Those two areas jumped out as being not good streets and bad service that needed to be redone underneath the streets. So it's one of those, like the mayor said, you can ignore it, nobody wants to pay for it, but sooner or later, the sewers are gonna collapse underneath there, and then it's gonna be a real big mess for the people involved, and it's gonna be paid for to fix it anyway. We don't wanna wait till it falls in.
It's one of those things is, me, when I got on the council and became, and ran for mayor, was to be proactive on a lot of stuff that goes on in the city, rather than say, nope, we're gonna just let this go and let's keep everything down to the minimal, and then when something happens, who's the one that gets the blame? So if we're proactive and stay ahead of it, because if we wait another 10, 15 years, you're looking at the average increase is gonna be even more. Their price per construction goes up 3% a year. So you figure in 10 years, if we did put this off, you're looking at 30% more cost to what he's projecting already. And like I said, you know, I'm not laying out ultimatums, I'm just trying to lay it out that this is not a good decision. You know, at any point in time we make a vote on this project, we have to weigh all the issues. So, the council has no other comments or questions. We will now close the public hearing and reconvene our regular council meeting. 7A, approve resolution 2017-75 ordering improvements.
Okay, this is the action item that's relative to the public hearing that you just had. So the council should discuss and possibly recommend whether you want to proceed with the project or not. This is resolution 2017-75. I think there was a couple things in here. We kind of wanted some clarification. Should the alleys be included or not in the proposal? Should alternate one be included or should it be removed? Because that was a decision that needed to be made yet. The 1 or 2 year project idea, that kind of comes along with design, doesn't really have to be made right now. But if you order the improvement to go to the next step, then we really should give direction to the engineer whether these other two items should be included in it. If you do order the improvement, that would send him into design. You can do it tonight, or we can bring it back at the next council meeting if you require more information in order to make a decision.
Okay. Council?
Well, I think paving the alleys, I think, is just not
It's not
appropriate at all. That's just,
I agree.
Main Street North, now, all of a sudden, there's no development. Well, I think there were some allowances made in the plan with the expectation that there would be development. Now we're being told, no, there will never be any development there. That may have some effect. I don't know how much, because we've still got development on the other side of Main Street North.
Right. One of the things is alleys, I think as far as I'm concerned, shouldn't happen, as far as paving alleys.
However, there are utilities that run down the one.
Well, it's still gonna be dug up. It doesn't mean we have to tar it after it's put back in place. Then even if we did dig up that alley and tar it, you're gonna have settling in a few places, and then you're gonna have a second overlay over, and then that raises the price, and it's costing you more
Well,
money.
you're gonna have primarily larger, I don't know, does garbage get picked up in those alleys?
No?
Okay. I was gonna say most of your traffic is gonna be heavy equipment.
Right.
Yeah.
And then as far as the alternate one, the Main Street North, Country Club Road, as far as the west side of Main Street, I think we put one large stub in someplace, and then if whoever's owning the country club at the time wants to, then it's up to them to do they run the mains to wherever, how they lay out the lots, rather than us guys increase the price of this whole project, because
I agree.
he stated
Yeah.
in his letter that there wasn't gonna be any development there, but he still gotta sign up reserving lots. Okay, so which way do we go here?
No cut in, I would say.
Well, to me, we get one stub in, so then if he wants to develop it, he pays for everything.
Okay, well, we have one stub up on the north end already.
There is, isn't there?
Yeah.
That's enough. If he's not gonna develop it, we don't need to put anything else in anywhere.
That's true. We got
Good.
one on the north end, right. That would be large enough.
Makes sense.
But then all the costs of development would be his, which with the city's always stood by anyway.
Yeah.
And then as far as a 1 year or 2 year, like Vicky says, I think would be a design thing. When we get to that point.
Does that bring us back down to base then? Eliminating anything to do on the north side of Maine, that brings us just down to the base option. Then we don't have to worry about the walking trail, the curb and gutters,
No,
or are we still planning on doing the road?
I think we still need to do the main going north from Country Club Road up to, North Main Street
I
anyway.
agree. I
think
think
we
there's
still
more and
need
more
to do
traffic
that
up that road. and-
Because there is interest on developing the east side of there, and that'd be the same thing. If that parcel, you just put one stub in, after that, it's up to them. If they put 6 lots in someplace in that field, then it's their cost. It's not being put on people,
Yep.
because it's their development,
Yep.
right? But, we've got more interest happening on that east side of Main Street than we got on the west side. So, but also the water capacity for Fairway Pines right now.
Right.
Now, the sidewalk or the walkway, I think you almost have to go with that with the.
So I can address the trail a little bit. Yeah. So we talked about sidewalks and we talked about the trail, and it was like a trail is a category where, you don't have to shovel in the winter, it's just a trail, it's a walking trail, it's like the one that goes out Highway 17, we get on it with our equipment, and we're able to go right up it. It'd be the same theory as the one that goes out toward the cemetery. It would just be a walking trail. If you walk up on Main, you see the people with their walkers from Fairway Pines on the street quite often. And with the anticipation of 39 apartments filled up in the spring, another 18, possibly 20 more townhomes, I mean, there was a lot of pedestrian traffic, and we were trying to determine kind of a lower cost way. A paved trail is less money than a concrete sidewalk, and so it was a way to move pedestrians, keep them safe for less cost, and that was kind of the idea that we came up with the trail.
Yeah.
If you'd rather have a concrete sidewalk, that can be designed in. if you don't want anything, and maybe we make the road wider instead. Those are options that we can have in design. They don't necessarily have to be decided tonight.
Right.
They just, as we go through design, we look at what it looks like, and then changes are made along the way to answer those questions.
Any other comments? Questions?
Yeah, we'll discuss the sidewalk later, I guess.
Yeah.
It's interesting that it's safe, except in the winter, they're back on the street. And I would think
No,
that would be
no,
the
no,
worst
no, in
time to put 'em
the,
on the
in the
street.
wintertime, we take our equipment up it. It's built to such that we can take our equipment on it, like,
Okay, so
take
the city will, the
pickup
city
truck.
will clean those sidewalks, basically.
The trails. See, the trails fall in,
Well, you call it
yeah.
a trail, but it does the same job.
It does.
Basically, it'd be almost like what we got going east of town to
That's-
the.
it's
Out to the
interesting.
cemetery, yeah.
Cemetery.
Well, we'll discuss that later
That's
than whatever we're
design,
doing.
Yes, that's design, very much so. Okay, so, is there any other comments or questions?
If this is pushed out to a 2-year project, just for those who are here's interest, is that the assessment begins the following year?
How the assessment works is, we need to borrow the money, and so then the assessments follow afterward. So if we borrow the money in 18, the assessments start in 19. So the assessments kind of start while the construction's going on when you have a 2-year project. And sometimes when we bond for the money in 18, we can put that first payment out. If we get the money later in 18, we can get the payments not to start till 20 for the assessments. So we kind of run those numbers based on our cash flow and when we need the money to pay the bills. So,
And I also want to mention there are other options on the assessments as far as, hardship and stuff like that, on payments.
we do have a deferred assessment option for elderly, disabled,
Right.
that type of thing.
Yeah. So, there is other options out there rather than just, this is it, so. Any other comments?
Just one, if you do prepay, or shouldn't say prepaid, but if you pay in complete, do you beat the interest? I mean,
Right. If you were to pay, say that we did the project next year, we did the assessments at the end of 18 or the end of 19, whichever year in November, if that person came in and paid, they would just pay the principal only. There would be no interest charged.
And there is another public hearing when it comes to the final assessments, if it gets to that point, so the people can come in and speak to us about that. So this doesn't go without public input at any point in time, so just to clarify that. What's the council's wishes? Do I have a motion to resolution 2017-75, ordering improvement and preparation of plans for 2018 North Hospital Area Project, or not?
I-
Go ahead, Dave.
I will make a motion that we approve Resolution 21775 for the improvements, accepting that the alleys not be paved.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
A second by Keith. Does everyone understand the motion?
Yep, I'd just like to add, I think we have to address the infrastructure. We can't keep having things crumble and wait for a catastrophic failure.
Right.
Does this include the base and the alternate with your motion?
What was that?
Does your motion base and alternate one?
Yes, including
Okay.
alternate one, just not having the
Thank
alleys
you.
paved.
Okay. Any other questions, clarification? Call the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. 7B, approve resolution 2017-76, decertifying TIF district.
Okay. In 1995, the city created TIF District 1-4, was known as Mississippi Flats. It's for the redevelopment of the old elementary school property, which is behind the post office right across the street from City Hall. At that time, the contract for private development was entered into with Michael Roach to reimburse him for the costs of redevelopment to include demolition of the old school and the installation of utilities. This reimbursement was in the form of TIF pay-as-you-go payments. The reimbursement payments occurred over a period of 20 years. 2017 marks the 20th year of payments to Roach. With the agreement fulfilled, the district should be decertified. With decertification of the district, any funds remaining in the TIF fund will be returned to Stearns County for redistribution back to the various taxing authorities, and the property will return to the general tax rolls. And I think I told you earlier that the tax value of the property is about $1.7 million, so that will return to the general tax rolls of the city. So what I have before you tonight is Resolution 2017-26, or 76, decertifying tax increment financing District 1-4, effective December 31st, 2017, and this was recommended to be approved by the EDA.
Questions? Comments? Do I have a motion to approve Resolution 2017-76, decertifying tax increment financing District 1-4, effective December 31st, 2017?
I'll make the motion.
I'll
Motion
second.
by Diane, second by Heidi. Any last comments? This is definitely gonna help getting that kind of money back onto the tax rolls. 1.6 million, will definitely work for the city's favor. Call the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. 7C, approve step advancement accounting specialist.
This is for Jacqueline Kirkhoff. She's been employed by the city for 3 years, effective November 17th. Prior to her anniversary date, a review was conducted to determine if an advancement to the next step was warranted. And a couple comments out of the review. Jacqueline continues to perform well in her position. She completes tasks in a timely manner, provides accurate reports, looks for ways to improve the function of the position, and seeks out classes to keep abreast of the changing rules that regulate government accounting. It is for these reasons that I recommend Jacqueline be advanced to Step 7 of the pay system, effective November 10th, 2017.
Questions? Comments? I know working with Jacqueline during the audit and everything, she's done a good job, and the auditors really like how she does things, because they don't have to do a lot of homework or digging through stuff, so. Do I have a motion to approve the step advancement for Jacqueline Kirkhoff to Step 7, effective November 10th, 2017?
So moved.
We have a motion by Keith, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Call the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. 7D, approve appointment to EMT classes.
Kathy Strufert, Ambulance Director. She's continuing to seek out candidates to fill the ambulance department roster. You did have the recommendation that she had here, that she wanted to recommend Christine Devens to attend the online EMT class, and she was seeking out another candidate to take the actual classroom class beginning in Glenwood. She does have a second candidate, and that is Hunter Devens. So upon successful completion of the classes, they would be eligible to be appointed as an EMT. So the recommendation is to authorize Christine Devens to attend EMT classes and Hunter Devens also. Christine to the online, Hunter to the in-classroom style setting on behalf of the Sauk Center Ambulance Department.
Questions? Comments? I think it's good to see that we still got interest on being part of our ambulance crew, so.
You bet.
Do we have a motion to authorize Christine Devens and Hunter Devens
Yes.
to EMT classes on behalf of Sauk Center Ambulance Department?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Diane, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Call the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against.
I've just got one question on
Yes.
the training on the site. The ALS and Kathy, is that, how hard is that to achieve?
ALS, Advanced Life Support, you're talking for a paramedic?
Yeah,
That's a 2-year class.
okay. Is there any thought of,
Yeah, actually, one of my candidates that's in class right now has already expressed an interest, and so has Hunter Devens has
Oh,
expressed
okay.
an interest to go on to the paramedic as well, which would help us as we try to advance to an ALS service.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Approved community paramedic agreement.
That just segued right into my next item. Okay, as the city continues to work toward advanced life support system, or an ALS service, the ambulance department is looking ways to move forward with that. Central Care Health utilizes a paramedic for in-home aftercare visits in Sauk Center. And so the attached agreement authorizes that paramedic to be utilized by the ambulance service to provide ALS when they're in the area. So they have a scheduled times when they're in Sauk Center to provide aftercare for their patients. And so when they're in the community, this will allow us to utilize them if we have ALS calls or actually an ALS transfer while they're here. We can utilize them the same as we would utilize a nurse at the hospital, but this would be utilizing the paramedic. This agreement has also been reviewed by the League of Minnesota Cities for liability requirements. They had a couple tweaky things they wanted to be included, so those have been forwarded to update the service agreement, but it was more just clarifying whose liability is whose during the term when they're carrying this out. So we're looking to approve this community paramedic agreement to put this service into effect, and this is just one more way to get us closer to an ALS service.
Questions? Comments? Do I have a motion to approve the community paramedic agreement?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Dave, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Heidi. Any other questions? Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Aye. Motion carries 4 in favor, none against, 1 abstention. Approve resolution 2017-77, amending rent agreement.
This agreement that we the lease agreement that we have with Centricare has a couple different sections in it with different kinds of rents and lease payments, but one of the rents payments is to help offset our costs for actually owning the hospital. And so that current agreement has a rate of $5,100 per month. The Centricare has approached me now, and with some additional costs, now their proposed amount is $8,000 a month. And Centricare has agreed to that amount. Actually, they have proposed that amount. So we're looking to approve Resolution 2017-77, amending the rent agreement from $5,100 to $8,000 per month. And this is for the Section 1.03 Subdivision 2 portion of the agreement, which has to do with just the nursing home.
Questions? Comments? Do I have a motion to approve resolution 2017-77, amending rent agreement?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Diane, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Any other comments? Call the question. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. Almost got me. 7G, approve appointment of winter seasonal employee.
Matt Zinio, Public Works Supervisor, has requested one additional seasonal employee to be utilized as a figure skating instructor. It is Callie Herdering. It's $15 per hour and IRS mileage rate when the driver. This is for the Saturday morning figure skating class. This is the one that was actually taken off the agenda last meeting, at the beginning of the meeting, and now we brought it back. So we're looking to approve the winter seasonal employment for Callie Herdering.
Questions? Do I have a motion to approve winter seasonal employment for Callie Herdering?
So moved.
A motion by Heidi, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. 7H, approve proceeding with property marketing agreement.
The EDA has met with a firm that specializes in marketing commercial and industrial property, including larger parcels along freeway corridors. And so the EDA met again today to discuss a little bit further whether they wanted to proceed with commercial marketing of both the Interpretive Center property and the Unger property that we have. And they are recommending that the city should proceed in entering into an agreement to do so. And so I guess what I'm looking for tonight is just kind of, if I get the council that, yeah, we kind of agree with that, then I will contact him and have him come back with an agreement that you would then look at the next meeting, potentially in a closed session to kind of discuss pricing, which you can do for real estate. So it's more just kind of a consensus that I take the next step on it. I really don't need formal action at this time.
Questions? Comments?
Good idea.
Okay,
Seems appropriate, yep.
general consensus that we proceed with that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to section 8, unfinished business, sale of parcel fragment.
This was the property on South Elm Street by the Ding Dong. If you recall at the last meeting, I brought you a certificate of survey that showed that there were some parcels that the city had sold to adjoining property owners, and the one parcel that was the property that was directly north of the Ding Dong, there was a fragment behind that house that is owned by the city. The Ding Dong and the owner of that fragment lot are both interested in purchasing that property, and it's like 3,500 square feet. And so we met with the finance committee, you'd sent it there, and their recommendation is to offer it first to the owner of the balance of that lot to make his lot whole. And then if he's not interested in purchasing it, then offer it to the second candidate. And the price had already been set by, back when they originally did it, and the finance committee is recommending just to sell it for that same price, which is on a square footage basis.
Questions?
When was the price decided?
1950.
Yeah, I was thinking.
What's that?
He said 1950.
1950, no, no.
We know that.
That was back, I think, in 2004 or 5, in that way. It was just
Okay.
set at a price per foot.
The amount of square footage isn't
It's not a
something
lot.
that the city's not gonna get rich over selling that chunk of property and making it a whole lot if that property owner wants it, so that's where the recommendation came from. Let's see. Do we want, you need a motion on that, right?
No, that if you know, if you're interested in proceeding with that, then I would have the agreement drawn up, and then you'd have to formally pass a resolution authorizing execution at the next meeting.
Okay,
I don't know which my buyer is yet, so I
all right.
can't have it done.
So general consensus is
sounds
to go
great.
along
Go
with
ahead,
the
yeah.
finance committee?
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. That now brings us to our consent agenda. We have a schedule of claims, unpaid claims of $65,101.93, which comes to that same total because we do not have any paid claims. Resolution 2017-78, resolution accepting contributions. We have a contribution of $25 from Mary Peterson to be allocated to the ambulance department. $125 from Minnesota National Bank to be dedicated to the ambulance department. $250 from Birchwood Resort LLC to be allocated to the fire department. And $1,153.73 from the Lions Club of Sauk Center to be allocated to the outdoor skating rink. I want to thank those 4 parties on behalf of the city for their contributions. Is there any other questions on the consent calendar? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented?
So moved.
A motion by Keith, do I have a second?
No second.
Second by Diane. Any other last minute comments, questions? Call the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. Informational items.
I have one informational item tonight, and it's also in your packet. It is our comprehensive plan public workshop. We will be meeting on Tuesday, November 14th at 6 p.m. right here. And this workshop is going to focus on future land uses, kind of like looking at the city, like where do you see our growth areas for commercial, residential, that type of thing. We're looking at transportation options, Highway 71, maybe what that's going to be. They'd have bypass options to talk about, so it's a lot of discussion. And then we'll also be talking about in place ways to sustain and improve downtown. So that's what we're kind of focusing on, transportation, downtown, and our future growth areas in this particular meeting. And we're looking for input from the public on that. So please come to the meeting, invite anybody that wants to come. It is public, so.
Questions?
Pack the chambers.
That's right.
You bet.
Okay, that brings us to our end of our agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
A motion by Dave, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Heidi. All the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.